shit.
That's what I'm talking about.
Wait.
Okay, now, from the beginning.
Let's talk about something important.
Joint on a corner where the big boys play.
Put that coffee down.
Welcome to the Pruitt Pest Podcast. Follow Rusty Pruitt on his entrepreneurial journey navigating all things pest control and business.
Hey guys, it's Rusty. I'm here with Maria for a journal entry update. How you doing, Maria?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to hear about all the things we've accomplished this year and all the things we fell short on.
Well, how much time you got? Because we fell short on some, and we've fallen short. But I feel like we've accomplished a lot. It's crazy. It's December 12th, so we're getting close to wrapping up the year, and it's hard to believe that it's been almost the end of 2022, and we're about to start a new year, right?
I think the year flew by for everybody.
No doubt. And so this is our journal entry. So if you go back, if you're new to the podcast, the point of this podcast since we started from inception was to basically document the journey of starting this new business, and it has given us an outlet to share with listeners what not to do. Some of our successes, our failures. I try to be as real as we can on this. We interview a lot of awesome, incredible people, whether entrepreneurs, people in the industry. We're trying to bring value to anybody listening, whether you're in the industry or not. But we do try to do what we call a journal entry, and hopefully, Maria, we're working on our business plan for this podcast now that we know that we're actually doing this consistently and have been for a little while. But we try to give an update on where the company is or what's going on, where we're not interviewing anybody necessarily, it's just me having an opportunity to talk and give an update. So we do want to let everybody know how much we appreciate your support and listening. We get feedback all the time, which is amazing. When sometimes you wonder, hey, is our message, is it even getting out there, or are we making a positive impact? And we are, and it's pretty awesome to get feedback. Someone reach out and say something like, or email us or message us that there's something that we talked about that changed their business, or maybe something that they related to, that they were in a season of life in their business and they could totally relate, and it gave them some perspective. Because I know I'm constantly reaching out to others, in the season of life where we are, to learn from them. So,
And it's awesome too when y'all reach out to us. It gives us an idea of what we want to talk about. So y'all are fueling our content as well, and it's nice to know we have at least one listener.
There you go, at least one, maybe two. Well, counting you and I, so maybe four. But no, our listenership has really just blown us away, and so. Our goal is to be more consistent. We're going to talk about some goal planning here shortly, but our goal for 2023 is to be a little bit more consistent with our podcast and get Maria to rope me in a little bit more, to pull me aside, to really be intentional about this thing. But here's lesson one, right? When we first started this, we didn't really know what we were doing with the podcast. Remember that, Maria? We were like, what's it about? What's it for? And I said, let's just do it. Let's not overthink it. Let's just take an action. And, the first step in anything is to take an action. And I know, I'm an action-oriented person. I'm probably a natural risk taker. And so, but sometimes, you can overanalyze something. You can think, well, if we don't know what the podcast is going to be, let's just think about it. And remember, we didn't know what we were doing. I don't even know how much we know now, right?
No, I tell you, I pretty much taught it. I'm self-taught on this, but I think we were trying to figure out what our message was, and at the end of the day, it's just bringing value, and I hope that we're doing that. And now moving forward, we have a lot more that we can talk about, and like you said, a lot of experiences we can talk about, what to do and what not to do. So
for sure, we've got plenty there, but I would encourage you, if there's something you're thinking about doing, whether it's hiring somebody or a marketing campaign, get as much information as you can, but just make a decision. No decision can be harmful in ways. You don't want to be impulsive. You want to make things with the right decision. But for those that, really wait for the stars to align and everything to be perfect before they can make a decision, I feel like you look up and you just miss opportunity. So anyway, with that being said, it hit me the other day. Maria, you and I have both gone through organization planners, the full focus planner, which I'm going to talk about here in a bit. We've talked about how to organize our day. That's things you and I have worked on over the years. Hey, you've asked, how can I be more organized, or how do you get things done, kind of thing. And so I actually was going through my personal planner, and I used to be religious about having an organizer and a planner and listing things out. What do I need to do for the day, for the week, what's most important, etc. It's been interesting. I've kind of gotten away from it the last 2 years.
Yeah, when you told me that you started up the focus planner again, I was a little bit nervous. It keeps you highly organized, and the first part of it is the top 3 that you're going to do in your day. If you want to talk about that, that really helped me.
Absolutely, and the journal, the planner that I pulled out about 3 years ago, incidentally, was about the time when the concept was born for us starting a pest control company. And so I just went back through this. It's so awesome. So it was from November 2019, so pre-company launch, pre-pandemic. And so I just finally finished this little planner. And this was just a blank planner, right? I've used all these tools over the years to organize and all the goal setting, all this stuff. And for whatever reason, at this stage of my life, 3 years ago, I just decided to have just a planner with just blank pages. And I said, you know what, I can come up with my own way of organizing. And I've realized that there was a bit of freedom with that, but also I realized I lost a lot of structure. But looking back at this, I've got it right here. And for you listeners, there's some things, I'm gonna take some pictures of some of these pages, and I'm gonna post it, or have Maria post this on our social media. So go check that out when we post this episode. But it is so interesting to look back at our notes. Look back in November. So the November, I've mentioned this before, Thanksgiving 3 years ago was our 3-year anniversary when I publicly told the first person that I was going to start a pest control company. And I can't remember when I told you, Maria, but after you fell out of your chair, I had to pick you up, I'm sure. But it was Thanksgiving 3 years ago that I shared this with my family. And of course, everybody looked at me like I was crazy and wanted to know what I knew about pest control and killing bugs and all that good stuff. And in these notes, I'm looking at where I was sketching out logo ideas and just handwriting ideas. And for those of y'all that don't know too, this really started with, I was considering doing like a do-it-yourself pest control company, direct to consumer. There are companies out there doing this now, but at the time, there wasn't really a place in the marketplace for it. And so that's where my interest with pest control really started, and thought I was going to start that company. I had actually met with some local people in the industry to get some perspective on it, and I wasn't going to be a direct competitor, but from a localized level, it was about to do it yourself. Then I realized, boy, that was a dirty word in the pest control and with the DIY stuff. But I did do a lot of due diligence on it and flew out to Utah to meet with some folks and different people. And I realized in order to do that, I had to get licensed. I had to start a traditional pest control company. So that's actually what led us to where we are now. And again, I'm looking at this journal, Maria. Look at this right here. Look at these do-it-yourself pest control logos that I was sketching out.
You're not an artist.
Thanks a lot. I have to agree with you, though.
It's cool, though, to see where you started. It really is.
Totally. Now, this one right here is actually one where Sims, at the time, my 9-year-old was drawing this because we were all having fun with this as a family. But I am going to post this. But as we go through some of these, I want to point out just a few of these pages. Like I said, we're gonna put these online. I think it's pretty interesting. So again, this was getting toward the end of 2019, and one habit I've gotten into over the years, and this is where I was sort of doing it freestyle, was writing down the top 3 things I needed to accomplish for the week, right? And then the rest of my weekly to-dos I would write down. Then I would have my daily to-dos, and so that's what I'm looking back in November, December of 2019, and then on into, I've got some notes here from January of 2020. My theme word for the year for 2020 was value. Remember that?
Yes.
What was yours that year? Do you remember?
Oh gosh, I don't remember. Last year or this year was intentional. Ask again later. I might find. I'll
That's
find
a
out
quiz
later.
for you. I know I've had value, I've had wisdom, I've had leadership.
Yes.
But I'm looking here just where I had put in notes, almost just chicken scratch. Like, what's my next steps for starting a do-it-yourself online direct-to-consumer pest control company? Okay, I have on here, get feedback, from someone in the pest industry, run a pro forma and projections. What would a digital marketing budget be? Let's see, how much would it cost to acquire a customer? Pay-per-click ads versus social media ads. Questions. I mean, anyway, it's just so dang interesting. What's the value proposition for someone buying pest control online, direct to consumer? Kind of like a Dollar Shave Club concept, right? Where it's subscription based. What is the value? And I wrote down little notes with just chicken scratch on here. So anyway, pretty interesting that we've got this, and then we start transitioning to when we realized we had to start a traditional pest control company to go to that route. Of course, since then, we've ixed the idea of doing a direct-to-consumer, do-it-yourself, and just have focused on a traditional pest control company. But I'm just going to go through this real quick, not to bore anybody, but I did have on one of our earlier episodes with a mentor. We talked about and actually had him on as one of our guests. I had a one-on-one. I flew out or drove out, I can't remember, to go meet with this person to basically get feedback on, going into this industry. And I have a whole page of notes that I had in questions. And I'm just looking on here, what are some things that I could do, if I were going to map out what this pest control looked like. Again, this is before I talked to really anybody. So I didn't know if this was real or this was attainable. Yeah, I had no clue, right? But at least I was getting something on paper, hey, what if we brought in this many customers and yada, yada, yada. And I have on here, map out, this is prior to going to meet with this mentor, map out a quote unquote big picture of what a growth plan would look like. And, I wanted to map out a conservative model, a moderate, and a super aggressive. Mm-hmm. And I've done this with our other business, with our insurance group over the years. You have different ways to grow. And when you model those out, you can see what resources are required for each scenario, right? If it's conservative, it's like, hey, I'm gonna start this thing out with a truck and a backpack sprayer. And I remember telling my wife that. You remember I told Mandy that, like, in the beginning, hey, if we're willing to do this, I've got to be willing to start here and learn this business. So I'd say in this scenario, that would have been like the most conservative model, most cost conscious, right? I didn't start the business to want to do that for the rest of my life, but I knew that would be one way to start. And we had a moderate level, which I think included finding someone with some industry experience coming on board with us. And the super aggressive would have been more like, all right, well, after, we kind of learn and we start building the team out within the first year, how can we really go and try to scale this thing if the opportunity exists? Mm-hmm. So remember, I'd never met with really anybody in the industry, so I didn't even know what the opportunity was. You were part of some of these initial conversations, right?
Yeah. So when you talk about mapping these out and you have, kind of 3 business models, you said big picture. Is that a 5-year plan? Is that a 10-year plan? How far out were you looking?
I knew if I was going to start a new business that could potentially, take a lot of my time and energy and focus. It had to meet some criteria. And I've mentioned this on previous episodes too, talking about mentors. A family friend of ours, Jim Corman, who I've mentioned, who was super successful entrepreneur and was a professor at Auburn University in the entrepreneurial program, talked about the basics in choosing an industry or a business. And one of them was the scalability. And I don't think I'd ever heard of that term back in the day and didn't know what that meant. In fact, I think I went and Googled it afterwards because I acted like I knew what he was talking about, but I really probably didn't. But, that's one thing with the pest control industry that, if I open a pest control company, it is scalable into other markets, right? So if I'm maximizing all the market share I can in, let's say, just say the Auburn, Alabama market, how can I take this to a different market, and can I scale it and duplicate it? Well, the answer is yes, you can. Is it easy? No, right? But it was scalable. And so that was one of the things I did in choosing, okay, if I'm going to go all in on this, I'm willing to start with that backpack sprayer on my back,
Right.
willing to try to learn the industry, go around meeting with customers, doing, wearing 20 different hats to get this thing going. Now, again, I would say we've been more on the moderate to super aggressive scenario, but how can you predict that when you first start, right? We didn't know what doors would open or, how we would build our team out. So it's pretty interesting going back, looking at this steps before, I started writing, all right, there's licensing, software, trucks, equipment. What's the best way to get someone trained who has no pest technical experience? So I was talking like, if I go and hire somebody, they've got no experience.
Yeah.
How can I train them? How do I train myself? That's one of my notes I wrote down here. So interesting.
It's funny too, because I doubt you could have Googled that.
I
you had to find the answers.
Oh, God.
That's why you had all these mentors.
I promise you I Googled it probably 20 different times, different ways, with different phrases. Another one here I've got on here, marketing, right? So again, just for context, this was around December, January 2020, so almost 3 years ago. These were some of our pre-launch, because we didn't service our first customer until July
Right.
of 2020, okay? So I've got on here marketing, website, lead generation. How much market share opportunity is it in Lee County or in the markets we plan to be in order to scale the business? How do we identify additional markets? Let's see, what kind of pay plans do we set up for a sales rep or a technician? I didn't have an answer to any of these things, right? Office building, I wrote on here. What is the ideal setup? What does it need to look like? How much space is needed for office operations, and how much space is needed for sort of shop, warehouse, and storage space? So when I sat down with this person and had all these questions, I probably just overwhelmed the heck out of them, and we probably only got to 2 of 35 questions. But anyway, pretty interesting. It's kind of cool to reflect back on this. So going back to our last update, Maria, I was looking at some notes. I believe the last update we did was a 2-year update. So we would have done this, earlier in the year, maybe in July? Does that sound right?
Sometime around our anniversary, July.
Okay. So that would have been our 2-year anniversary from when we served our first customer. So, I'll give some quick updates, and then a big thing we're working on right now. So this season of where we are with our company is pre-planning for next year, okay? So we did this last year, getting ready for 2022, and so we're doing this now, getting ready for 2023. So I'll just touch on some of the stuff. Number one, we set a lot of big goals for 2022, and it would be more on that aggressive sort of plan, right? And I remember it was this time last year when we sat down with our, at the time, leadership team, and there were 4 or 5 of us in a room, and we're talking about what our sales goals were for the year. What were we trying to accomplish? And we put out some pretty big goals. I think $3 million in sales, and annual contract value sales is what we had set. We had it broken down by location, and again, some on our team looked at me like I had 3 heads when I came up with that. And I said, well, if we just throw out a big number and we don't have a plan to get there, then yes, it's overwhelming. But if we can break it down to sales activity, what do we need to do marketing-wise? How much do we need to invest and spend, right, in marketing to generate the lead opportunities, right? And then, is that realistic? So we backed our way into the numbers, reverse engineered how many proposals or quotes would we need to do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis in order to drive the sales based on our closing rate. So if we're closing at, let's just say 50%, if we need 5 sales, that means we need to go quote 10 prospects. Okay, so it's just a simple math equation. And then how much do we need to spend in marketing investment, or you know, where are those leads going to come from? So then we reverse engineer, where are we going to get those 10 quote opportunities? All right, well, what if we need 300 quote opportunities in a given month? Where are we going to get those? So we did come up with a plan. I think everybody breathed a little bit easier toward the end of our planning session when we really broke down our numbers. But look, here's the reality. You know, I'm not sugarcoating anything. We set those big goals, and we're going to fall short this year. But I would much rather fall short of a big goal than fall short of a super small goal, right? And so what we found is, you know, we'll end maybe closer to the 2 million mark, which in perspective, I feel like is still really good. But we also shifted based on information, you know, probably back in the, you know, second, third quarter of last year. You know, we realized a lot of our marketing and the campaigns we had in the pipeline were not going to be fully executed until July and August. Mm-hmm. Well, based on our goals, those were supposed to be in place in February, March.
Before the busy season.
Before the busy season, right? And so when we found we were missing that window, you know, we made some adjustments. And I think we did, I think it was the right thing to do. It probably would have been a little reckless to invest that amount of money and resources and marketing, you know, to get ramped up at the end of season, right? So that's something that, you know, a lesson I think I took away, and hopefully our team has taken away, that we got to be fluid, right? We've got to be, you know, open to make adjustments, right. But you've got to start with that target. And I mean, you've seen that, Maria. What's your perspective on what you see, what our goals were for the beginning of the year, what we were lined up to do based on sort of where we are wrapping up this year?
I think, like you said, for me, taking the experiences that we had, I'm looking at it more from like a marketing perspective. So we might not have necessarily known, okay, we do know what the busy season is, but ramping up for that, and then what are we going to do next year? So getting those marketing tactics in line, or getting those advertisements out, you have to have those ready Q1 if you're looking to get those out by July or August. And that's something that I think we may have saw. We had those organic leads, but still, what can we do to hit those goals? And so now we know going into next year,
absolutely,
we have to prepare early.
Again, it's going, you know, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So you come up with the best plan you can with the information you have. Mm-hmm. And again, we're going to fall short, but it's been a pretty incredible year. We'll finish this year right around the 2 million revenue mark. Not sales goals, but actual revenue in the bank. And you know, to be in business 2.5 years, it far exceeded where I thought we would be. And of course, it comes down to our people, right? The people that we've put together, they've bought into the vision. You know, some people have been on the bus in the beginning and they're not on the bus anymore. That, you know, people are hopping on the bus and hopping off the bus, and it's based on, you know, where they are in their stage of life and their season of life. But as long as our bus is going in the right direction, right, and, you know, we're constantly looking for the right people to put on the bus, we're going to set aggressive goals, and we're gonna try to accomplish big things. But you know, that was a learning lesson. You know, we realized that some of the marketing that we hoped to scale maybe wasn't as scalable as we thought it was, or maybe the ramp up period would take a lot longer. Right. And so that's one of my takeaways. I know you and I have talked about this a lot. Knowing what we know now, how can we learn from that as we build out our marketing plan for next year? Right. And on the social media, I know you do a lot on the social media and content and getting content out there. I mean, you've probably had some life lessons this year too, right? Oh,
100%. I think too, I don't have the same personality as you do. I feel like I'm not a planner. And so now it's December and I'm already thinking about, okay, what events are we going to? How can I get our other locations involved? We now have multiple locations that we didn't have before. And then also you have to look at the team that you've built out and the goals that you have. You may not have these, you know, set in stone goals. I want the best team ever, but I feel like we do have the best team now, and you have a lot of people that are bought into the vision. And so to me, that's a big accomplishment, and just being able to tell our story. And that's why I love this podcast so much, because I feel like it really does, truly tell our story. So no, I'm excited for next year. I don't know how many more days are left in the year, but I'm already thinking about what my theme word is for next year, and it's probably going to end up being consistent. So
Nice.
I'm going to take that and see what's, what can come of that. So,
very good. I love it. I have not thought of mine yet for next year, so I'm sure we're going to have a little exercise to do that between now and the end of the year. But the timing is interesting right now. We had our annual planning session through EOS. Again, if you've listened to previous episodes, EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, we have an implementer. You can self-implement that system, or you can hire an implementer. We have David King, who is a phenomenal implementer and turned out to be a really good friend and advisor, I believe, to me and to our team. And we just had our annual planning session. Was that last week? Mm-hmm. Last week. So the timing was really good. As we're wrapping up this year, we looked at, what did we do really well this past year? What did we learn from? What did we suck at, right? And there are some things that I know professionally, personally, that I just sucked at, that I need to get refocused on. This podcast is not about sugarcoat and act like we've got it all figured out, because we don't. The podcast where they do, that means they're hiding or they're lying, because we're all human. We all make mistakes. Yes. We, it's not easy. It's not just a walk in the park, at least not for us anyway. And so we had an opportunity last week to be real about that with our leadership team. And then we talked about what do we feel like our opportunities are for next year. And so we've actually gone through the exercise. We set our annual goals for 2023. It's an aggressive model when it comes to as far as, execution and our growth. We're definitely growth oriented for next year. But I think we can do maybe a little bit more wiser in the way where we spend our dollars, for marketing. And we also outlined our people plan, like how many people, in order to take on the natural growth we're going to have, what are some hires we're going to have to do to add to the team.
Do you have any advice for maybe a small business? I'm sure a lot of bigger companies, they already know how to approach this, but how do you approach your team at the end of the year? Like, do you have any advice on, okay, you never want to say, these are all the things we did bad, these are all the things we did good. Like, how do you approach it in a way that's effective? Because I know for myself, you talk about falling short on a couple of things. I can manage those on my own, but how do you approach an entire team and say, these are the things we need to work on?
That's a great question. Number one, we try to give sort of a quarterly update to our, all of our team members. And I'm not acting like we've got 300 employees spread across the country, but we are in 3 physical locations, and we do have, in the low 20 count of team members, and it's important for them to hear that. Right. And I think number one, even throughout the year, there were times when we didn't hit our sales number, or, especially when we were trending to hit our $3 million goal that we originally set, and we were falling short of that. And there was a lot of discouragement, with our leadership team. So number one, that shows they care, right? They didn't just move on, like they really cared. And I remember having to play motivator and, and try to inspire them, like, hey guys, we're not hitting that goal, or we're not on pace to hit that super aggressive goals, but the stars had to align for us to hit that. We had to have our sales team built out. We had to have all of our marketing in place. And so when you back that out, so when we scaled back, we were not making the marketing investment that we had chosen, that we had planned on. And we had not hired all the additional people that we had planned on in order to handle that growth. But our P&L looked better, right? So it was a positive in that. And so I, number one, I found myself encouraging our team when I think maybe they were thinking they were going to let me down by not hitting that, when I was like their cheerleader saying, no, guys, we're still doing incredible. Now, if we had still spent that amount of money in investment and we weren't hitting those sales goals, then we got an issue. But from a profitability standpoint, it reflected, in our favor. So I think now is the time, at the end of the year, we just finished up our Christmas parties. We had an awesome Christmas party last week as well. We took everybody, at least in the Auburn, Alabama market. We rented a van and went ate at a nice restaurant. And
It was more of a party bus.
a party bus, yeah, party bus.
Yeah.
And had a fantastic time. And Isaac had a great time with our team down there. And so, now's the time to look back, reflect. And I think that's the message we send to our team. Hey, here's what we did well this year. Here's where we can improve, and making sure everybody is on the same page. I think that's still important. I had one of our sales professionals literally text me 10 minutes before I walked in here and said, "Hey, I've got some ideas. I've got some stuff I want to run by you." So he's already thinking about next year and where we can go. So with that, when talking about our annual planning, one of our rocks for this year, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but one, it kind of ties into what you're talking about, Maria, is our annual kickoff, right? We call it PEACO Fest, PEACO. That's our acronym for our core values, okay, which is passion, excellence, adaptable, creativation, and ownership. So we call this PEACO Fest. So this will be our third PEACO Fest coming up. I believe we're planning it for February, March. So one of our rocks was to get organized with planning our PEACO Fest, and that's an opportunity for us to, get a message out to our team. Hey, here's our objectives for the year. Here's what's worked, here's what hasn't. Let everybody kind of know where we're going, or reinforcing to them where we're going. We also bring in outside speakers who can bring value, whether it's on the technical side, whether it's motivational. We get to go have fun and have a day of just fun, which I think we're going to do on day 2.
Yep, day 2. We had our headshots on day 2, I think, after the fun, and we needed a little touch-up on those photos, but...
That's right. Well, some of us had probably too much fun, but no, it was a good time, and so that's an opportunity for us to, again, reinforce what our vision is, right? What our core values are, and where we're trying to take this. Something else that I've kind of learned this year when it comes to communicating to the team is, it's important for them to know just have an open communication, okay? And when it comes to a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to encourage, everybody in our company to give some feedback, in a survey that we'll do. 0 being the worst, 10 being the best. How did we communicate? How did I, as the owner of the company, CEO, visionary, whatever, how did I communicate? Whether, it's a branch manager, or whether it's somebody on our sales team, whether it's our service professional, like, how did I communicate? How did the person that you directly report to, how was the communication this year? Because I feel like as a growing company that's going through a lot of change and growth, and you're adding on new people, things happen. I mean, sometimes like a million miles an hour, it feels like they're coming at you. You're having to shift strategy. And like, I realized that we set all our sales goals based on aggressive marketing, and we shifted because we didn't have good data as far as our cash flow projections. We didn't have good data in terms of our marketing campaigns prepared to be ready to launch in February and March. And so we restructured our goals for the year. I've gotten feedback already that I don't think we communicated that very well, to everybody. And I just assumed that everybody knew it, or I assumed the message was, getting across to the company. But I realized, from some questions I've got here recently, like, people were concerned, like, well, why are we not hitting our goals? Or like, why are we not doing this? I thought we were doing that. And so for me, that's a learning opportunity for myself, to make sure we're communicating. And piggybacking on that, I've also had people bring up stuff about, bring up items and, so-and-so's not getting this, or, I thought we were getting our, I thought this was happening, but it's not, or, and it was almost sort of an eye-opening thing for me because we weren't communicating that well. And not only that, we've got to make sure we let our team know that in a fast-paced growing company, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to drop the ball. When balls get dropped and I get feedback from people, first thing I do is take it to our leadership team and make them aware of it, right? There was a particular thing that we dropped the ball on. It wasn't intentional. It's just there was a lack of communication, not intentionally, just because we're all just trying to survive sometimes, right? Because we're going in different directions. And I reminded this person, I said, I can tell you this, when we get feedback like this, we take it to our leadership team because nobody wants us to screw up in this particular area that we screwed up in. And I said, at the end of the day, too, you've got to trust the person and the people you're around, because if you don't trust them and they screw up, that's when it becomes an issue, right? That's when it can become cancerous. If you trust that person, and we as leaders, if we can try to build that trust with our team and we screw up, they know our heart's in the right place, hopefully, and that we're human, we're going to screw up, but we're also going to try to make it right.
Right.
And so, that's a message, that I shared, with some on our team. And so I think it's a lesson that I've learned through this year. Open communication, more communication, the better.
Right.
Don't assume someone knows something. But then also within our teams, how can we build a culture of trust? How can we build a culture of people knowing that we screwed up, we didn't maybe include this person in the meeting. It wasn't intentional. It's because we were just trying to get the ball down the field to move on to the next place to get something done. Maybe that person didn't have context to know why they weren't invited to that meeting, and that's just an example of something.
I will say too, just speaking on my age, I'm 26 years old, and the one thing that I hear from a lot of my friends is, they have an issue with X, Y, or Z, and I said, well, did you tell anybody about it? Well, no. I'll tell you right now, it is scary approaching someone and just saying, hey, this is what I saw, this is what what I want to be done different, or whatever it is. Just knowing that you have a voice and knowing that your voice does make a difference. And I think a lot of companies or businesses make sure that your team knows who they can go to with these issues. I think that's something that I've seen just in previous jobs, and honestly, knowing that you trust that person and utilizing your voice. People aren't going to know what the issues are unless you're speaking up, and it is hard. But if you're somewhere where you feel like you can't speak up, then you might not be in the right place.
Absolutely.
And that goes for my age, and it doesn't matter how old you are or how long you've been somewhere. You do have that voice.
Well, when I paint when I paint a picture in my mind, I see this vision of what our culture looks like, and a big part of that is open communication. Right? It is people knowing they can voice their opinion, give feedback, and be heard. Okay? But it's not, someone can give feedback, and, me as a leader, I've got a little bit different perspective, or maybe I've got a little wisdom on a subject, and I have to be careful not to just shut it down so fast, because I know that's not the direction we need to go, or I know, but how disheartening or discouraging is it when someone gives some feedback and then they feel like they're not being heard. Right. And look, I'm the world's worst because I'm going 90-0, and if I know, hey, that's not relevant, but they don't know, they don't have the context that I have, right? And so I think we also have to do that, in our service center leaders, our market leaders, they need to make sure their team can go to them, right? We've had some turnover, staff turnover, not much this year, but we've had one in a leadership position. We've had one in a sales position. We've had one in a technician role, right? So there was a particular one with one of the technician roles where, we were in a meeting and they kind of gave some feedback or had some concerns. And I'll be honest, I felt like in the room, I was the only one looking at it from a different perspective than probably what everybody else was hearing. Not right or wrong, but it was a different perspective, and I could see where they were coming from. And now my question to myself and for our team is like, did we talk about that? Did we try to put ourselves in that person's shoe? Even if that person had a good idea, bad idea, dumb idea, it doesn't matter. Did we listen to them? And then did we leave the meeting with that person saying, here's our perspective, give additional feedback. But at the end of the day, we've got to leave on the same page, right? We've got to leave on the same page, and we have to agree, even if, they don't completely agree with me and vice versa, but we've got to have some sort of resolution. And no plan is, no plan. I mean.
Well, and how awesome is it now? Okay, we know these things. We've skid our knees going into next year. Communication is one of your rocks, and how can we implement that for all of your teams and making sure that everyone is on the same page? Because as your team starts to grow, if that's happening now, it's going to happen in the future. So you have to, plan for that early. Totally.
And my wife gives me, because she says I play devil's advocate too much, and it's a fine line of you've got, not to get political, but you've got people that are far right, you got people that are far left, and philosophically, it's not that I don't want to choose one side. I try to look at it from both perspective. Republican, Democrat. I have people on either side that I highly respect, that I way value their opinion, right? So how can you say this side's right and this one's wrong, and vice versa, when I have people I highly respect on both sides, right? And so, I think we have to put ourselves in other shoes, and I don't always do that for sure. I mean, I screw up on that a lot. But philosophically, I want to have a culture to where we do communicate and things can be taken in context. Mm-hmm. Because if someone has, let's say, a marketing idea and it's just dismissed, it may be dismissed for a reason, right? So, for example, if someone said, well, hey, let's go try to do this, and that, and maybe it's dismissed because what I've learned is we can't go do 35 marketing things. We have to get really good at 2 or 3, then we can start maybe adding some additional ones on. But if that salesperson came to me with a marketing idea and I just dismiss it because it doesn't align with our quarterly rocks of where we are with our company, how's that person going to take it, right? So hopefully, as a leadership team or as peers within the organization, we can take that feedback, talk through it, and explain the context behind why maybe we're not going to pursue that. Or I say this all the time, right? Let's put it on the shelf. Let's not throw it away, but let's put that idea, as a long-term thing we need to talk about, because it's a great idea, right? It just may not be the right timing for where we are as a company. So that is something, I definitely, continue to learn and personally try to get better at. So as long as everyone in the company knows what our rocks are for the quarter, right? Knows what our core values are. So when something comes up, they should all know, hey, here's our focus. Hey, we're opening a new office, for example. Let's say we're opening a new office in a new market. Well, if that doesn't get communicated to the team, and then all of a sudden somebody sees us post a job posting, which this has happened, by the way, posted a job posting for a new market, and they feel like they're the last to know, that means we didn't do a good job communicating, right? And not everybody needs to know every single thing. There are things that that I'm gonna work on maybe within a few people within our company until we vet it and figure out if it's something we want to do or a strategy we want to put in place. But there are definitely things I think we need to communicate. So, all right. So moving on, we talked about the full focus planner, and we'll wrap up with this here in a few minutes, Maria. So I've said that a few times. Google it. Go to fullfocusplanner.com or just Google Full Focus Planner. We talked about EOS, about how we break down goals into basically 90-day increments or quarters, and we don't pick 100 goals for the quarter or 90 days. We choose just 5 to 7. Right, as a company, we just chose 5 to 7 for the next 90 days with our company, and then we focus on those and put all our effort around those. And this full focus planner is something that I used before EOS, but I've always been in the mindset of this quarterly thing. Pick your biggest goals, and so. If you get a chance, check it out. It really helped us. We actually, when I first started using it, we were giving away to friends, clients, centers of influence, a lot of people in our that refer us business that are trying to grow their business in the real estate industry. I think I bought 50 of these things one year, and they're not cheap, by the way. But I mean, they're not expensive; they're worth the investment. But I think I bought 50 that one year and gave these out to a lot of our centers of influence. I believed in it so much. But I'm going to walk through it real quick because literally this is one that I ordered 3 months ago to get a newer version. And about 3 months ago, I started to work on it. And I started feeling overwhelmed. I put it down and went back to my old, this old journal I've had for the last 3 years where it was just blank. But I did pick this up last week. And I just want to go through real quick some of the highlights of it. What is this, right? So first thing you do is we want to write down our annual goals. What are the things we're trying to accomplish this year, right? And there's not 100 of them. There's not 20. You're talking about a core, 10 or so. What are the things we want to accomplish this year, right? And we're gonna write those as a SMART goal. And that's something that I could spend a whole episode talking about. But a SMART goal, that means it's, right, Maria? It's specific.
Measurable.
It's got to be measurable.
Attainable.
Realistic. Look at you.
Tactical. Timely.
Timely. There you go. So it's got to have a time. Look at you. Had a girl.
I haven't said any yet.
But so for example, let's say our sales goal. Let's say our sales goal is going to be 3 million. So a smart way of writing that is, we will sell $3 million in annual contract value by December 31st, 2023. Okay, so we're going to come up with, our top goals for the year. Again, we don't want so many that it's not a focus. We don't want too little that, we're too conservative. We've got some for ours as far as maybe some marketing strategies that we're putting in place. We've got a sales goal that we've got out there. We've got some recruiting and hiring goals that we've got in place. So we wrote these down last year as a company. But in this personal planner, so I'll have all these written down for the company, and then I'll have those personal goals. What are some of my personal goals? It may be something like an exercise, health-related goal. It may be something family-related, right? So I'll write down our annual goals. Okay, then we're going to write some things like, what are the key motivations for this? What is this goal going to help us accomplish, right? And then we're going to put in there, what are the next steps? What has to happen to achieve these goals throughout the year? So if we want to, let's say, go into a new market. Let's say we want to open a new scratch office, or we want to go acquire a company in a new market. Okay, we set that goal. Then what are the next things that are going to happen? Okay, well, maybe we need to research that market. Maybe we need to see what it looks like. Maybe we need to recruit and hire some people in that market. So we're going to put those key next steps as we're putting our goal detail in place. Okay, so that's one of the first things with this planner. There's another one, and I'll be honest, I can't say that. I did use it, but not for long. But they have something called a streak tracker. So things, activities, daily, like ritual activities that we want to do on a daily basis to get better. I know 3 years ago or 4 years ago, I said I want to do 20 push-ups a day. And I put it in this thing. And it was only 20. If I'd put, 200 push-ups a day, I probably would have lasted maybe a month. And then, one day, I wouldn't do it because I'm, whatever. And then the streak fell off. So I set a goal that year to do 20 push-ups a day. And I did it every single day for that entire year. Or if I did happen to miss a day, I would just make it up the next day. There were times when I'd go 4 days without it for, I'm sick, got the flu, whatever. But I would make it up. And so I did that for about 2 years. But if I promise you, if I'd set a 100 push-up goal, it probably wouldn't have happened.
Well, it's cool, too, because people set these New Year's resolutions, and the reason they fall off is because I'm very visual. I need to see, okay, I said I was going to go to the gym 4 times this week, and I went once.
There you go.
So do I get rid of the goal, or do I pick it back up next week?
That's
So
right.
That's really cool. You can see it.
That's right. It's like, what is it? Football is a game of inches, right? So every play, every inch counts. And so doing it, you're not going to get a 30-yard run every play, but how can we do the right things? Anyway, so the streak tracker, really interesting. I know one for me is getting more consistent on my morning ritual. I get up at 4:40 a few days a week. I play basketball. I get going, and I know I'm going to get up early those days. What about the other days? Am I still getting up early, or am I waking up and just rolling into getting dressed and getting the kids off to school? Maybe I need to set my alarm consistently at 5 o'clock every day. Whatever it is, activity-wise. So that's something I'm definitely going to use. Another one real quick. You put your calendar. What are the key events that are going to happen for the year? For us, I know we do a customer appreciation event Monday after the Masters. Awesome big golf tournament we do. We need to go ahead and put that on our calendar, know when it's happening. Pico Fest, we know that's happening. Annual Christmas party, we know it's happening. EOS, we do our annual planning. Like I said, we did it last week. Then we do quarterly planning. Let's go ahead and get these on the calendar. Write them down. Let your eyes visualize what you're writing down and reinforce that. Another part of this planner, your daily rituals. Again, what are the things that you need to start your day off with every morning? How do you wrap up your workday every day? How can we get in some rituals? And I'll be honest, for the last 2 years, I have not been consistent at all, period, with this. And I feel like it's time for me to get realigned on this. The next section on here, it talks about the ideal week. Okay, so the ideal week is something where you're going to put in a little bit more, maybe ritually or consistent, your potential theme word here, Maria. So like on Mondays, what do my Mondays look like? Does it look different every single Monday? Or do I need to get sort of a consistent schedule for what Mondays look like? I know we have a level 10 meeting with our leadership team once a week. We've got that scheduled for Tuesdays at 10:30. There's another time I have with our financial resource, and we go through financial planning and on a weekly basis and then a monthly basis. So what does an ideal week look like from a scheduling standpoint? So that's something I'm working on right now for 2023. Lastly is key projects for the quarter. And we call them rocks in EOS world. They call them key projects on this. Okay, so we set our rocks for the company last week for the next 90 days. Then everybody has individual rocks. So I may have an individual rock of something I want to accomplish over the next 90 days. Now we want to make sure that aligns with the company rocks. But there are going to be individual things that I need to do individually. So part of this is writing down those key rocks or projects for the quarter. We're not doing it for the whole year, just for the next 90 days. What are the things we can look up at the end of the quarter? We look up and say, if we didn't accomplish anything else, we accomplished these 3 to 5 things that we'll say it was a super successful 90 days. Because if we look up and we didn't accomplish any of those things, either they weren't important, or we got to get focused, or we let the whirlwind of life happen, and we didn't accomplish those things.
But then that also is broken down on the daily, and that's where it gets real.
Oh, you're stealing my thunder.
Yes.
Look, I've trained you well, Maria. So when we look at our projects, we're writing those down for the next 90 days. Okay, and then we are going to then look at for the week. Okay, again, mentor of mine years ago was leading a huge company, and here at the time, I think I had like 7 employees, and I asked this person, I'm like, how did you run a company with 1,000 people and stay organized? I'm struggling just with 7 people, right? And he said, Rusty, every single morning I wake up, I write down the top 3 things I've got to accomplish today. I said, like every single day? He's like, every single day. He said, and it can change daily. And so this right here is your weekly big 3. And I did it this morning, right? I said, what are the 3 things that are most important for me to accomplish this week? And I wrote those down. Because what happens? Life happens. Distractions happen. You come in Monday ready to go to be organized, and 3 people call out sick. And all of a sudden, you've got to shift your whole day, your week. Maybe, you had time blocked to work on a certain project, and something happened and completely derailed, your day. We all have that happen, right? So we write down what are the top 3 most important things. The thing is, you look at this every single morning, right? You're looking at it every single morning so you can stay focused on that. And then you do that every day. So, for example, today I'm writing down what are the top 3 things I need to accomplish today. I've got my calendars booked today from early this morning till 4 o'clock today. I'm just slammed with appointments and things. But at the end of the day, what do I need to accomplish? So, I wrote those down for myself. Okay, I know for one thing we're doing right now, and I'll just kind of go through this. We've got a level 10 video that we're going to watch because we're restructuring a little bit on some of our format for how we do our weekly level 10. So David suggests us watch this video. He sent an email to me, last Wednesday or Tuesday. I still haven't watched this thing. So I identified today one of the most important things I can do before I put my head on my pillow is to look at this video, right? Another one is an organization chart. Our company's changed. We've restructured. We're constantly growing, adding people. People are falling off. So we need to communicate to our team, what does our organization look like? And we need to make sure they know this. Again, going back to communication, right? So those are the 2 or 3 things that I've identified that I need to get done today, Monday, December 12th, 2022, outside of just normal appointments and things. And then I've got a lot of things I need to get done this week. It's not necessarily super important. I've got, there's a certain person I need to reach out to about setting up a meeting. It doesn't matter if it happens this week or a month from now, but it's something that I need to put on my radar. And if you're as forgetful as me, Maria, you may be able to relate to this. Yeah. We've got to write these things out, right? Software, review a certain software, any just little busy things for the week. So, Maria, give some of your perspective. I know, your goal is to be consistent this year. You've had this full focus planner in the past. I don't know if you're using it now. What are some things that you've encountered using a tool like this that have maybe helped you get the most out of it, or you feel like maybe have been a challenge to stay consistent on it?
Well, I'll tell you right now, I'm not using the full focus planner. Going into next year, that's something that I want to get ahead of. Christmas is coming soon, Rusty. I'm looking to use that full focus planner, but no, when I use it, it really helps me stay consistent, and it also helps me with the accountability piece. I think that one thing that I realized was I was overwhelming myself. I'm a yes person. I love saying yes. I do love helping as much as I can, and I realized how much I was overextending myself. And it was really awesome too if you work under someone just saying, hey, these are the things that I have on my top 3. If you're asking me to do something today, look at my top 3. I'm looking at my top 3, and it just can't get done. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot easier to kind of present that data to someone if you're like me, who is a yes person, and you need to find a way to say no. But then also just holding myself accountable. And I think it's a great tool to definitely recommend finding a theme word for your year and then sticking to that. Like if mine's consistent and I'm using this planner, I get to look at every single day. Am I showing value in this day or whatever it is? So yeah, I definitely love it. Haven't used it this last quarter, and I feel like you can see it. I feel very overwhelmed right now. So I like the size too. We'll include a link, but the one before was like about the size of a book. This one, I feel like you could just put it in your book bag.
A little smaller. It's like it's like their pocket version.
Yeah.
Yeah. So check in with me when we do our next check-in. Call me out, Maria, if I'm using this or not. If I say I'm not, that means I'm just completely just full of it. And hopefully this will be something I can get focused on. Again, New Year's resolutions coming up. Everybody sets these big goals and things for themselves, and I'm trying to be careful to set realistic things. Again, I think I'm going to do the push-up thing again because I took this year off, and it's showing. Wait a second. But it is something that, how can we, if it's a daily ritual thing, maybe it's exercising or whatever, but, set it small. You can always increase on that. And going back to my little 20 push-up thing, we had a group text thread. I remember sitting around Christmas, again, this is 3 or 4 years ago. We were talking about how, hey, who wants to do this daily push-up challenge with me? Everybody, maybe they had a few cocktails, and like 10 people said they were going to do it. And then we had a core group that committed to it. And it was just 20. The name of our text thread was Gimme 20. And that was it. And every morning you did your 20 push-ups and you text done, right? Everybody's doing it for a week, and all of a sudden, someone falls off, right? And you text them again like, hey, John, why didn't you do your push-ups? There's some accountability there. But, it was 20. It wasn't 30. It wasn't 50, right? Mm-hmm. For us, we felt like that was a simple, easy thing to do, but it wasn't about the amount as much as it was the discipline of doing them. Mm-hmm. And so what then happened after you do 20 consistently for a month? This is a piece of cake. Then you're like, all right, I'm already on the floor. I'm already doing this. I might as well do 50 today. The next day you may just do 20, right? But then that day when you're feeling a little froggy, you may do 50 or 75, right?
Yeah.
Or you may do a couple different sets. But
no, something you've said in the past that stuck with me is just be 1% better than the day before. And if you can't get to that 20, maybe you can get to the 18, and then the next day you can get to 22, but just be 1% better. And I've tried to think like that. Sometimes I get discouraged, but when you have people around you who are, working towards that same goal, it's a lot easier to accomplish. So talk about communication, a lot more group chats coming in 2023.
No doubt.
Motivating.
No doubt. Well, look, it's been awesome catching up. It's fun looking back on, again, last update was our 2-year anniversary when we serviced our first customer. Now is basically our 3-year anniversary from when when I announced to close friends and family that we're starting this company. It's going to be interesting as we keep this hopefully consistent over the next 5-10 years, looking back and listening to these things, and we're probably going to look back and think, oh, how dumb did we look saying some of the stuff we did, or maybe there were some good values of things, perspective we had. But I think our next update, Maria, let's shoot to do this in January next month, and let's maybe give some updates on how we finish the year. We can go back and review the goals that we publicly put out there, and let's be real and see where we exceeded those goals and where we fell short, and in some areas well short. We can maybe touch on some of our goals for 2023.
Yep. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. It's been an amazing year. I'm super excited for what's to come up for next year. We have, like Rusty said, our update, and then we have Pico Fest. Some exciting guests lined up. We're going to do another Q&A.
Yes.
What else? Possibly some other exciting things you want to talk about, or we'll save that.
There you go. Let's save that.
All right.
All right, guys. Take care.
Bye.